What's up, you guys? Coming back at you with another Commander Top 10 video. This time we're going to be going back to 3 colors with Mardu. Funny thing about it is, if you haven't watched my previous videos on 3 color, especially when it comes to the Kanzatar-Kier combinations where you have Mardu, Jeskai, Abzan, Temur, and Sultai, there's not a lot of support when it comes to these color combinations. But Mardu, for some reason, seems to have a ton of support. I don't know if it's because it's easier for R&D to come up with ideas, but we have a ton of commander options in this color combination here. Now, before I get onto the actual list, let me bring up some honorable mentions, because I know some people get funny when they see a favorite card of theirs that isn't on the list. Well, first we have Fervent Charge, Mardu colored enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn, which is pretty decent. In Mardu, you like to give buffs to creatures whenever they attack. The only problem is why this isn't on the list is that we have a ton of anthems. We have a ton of different ways to pump up our creatures other than just having a Mardu colored enchantment out there. We just have a ton of anthems in this format, and really just this doesn't really seem like it does enough for being 3 colored, and it doesn't really seem too special. Within these colors you would expect something unique, something that would give double strike or haste or anything like that, but it just gives a little buff there, so nothing too special. We have Oros the Avenger, which really isn't all that great. I don't like these dragons. You have to connect and able to make them worthwhile to justify them as your commander, but once you do that, you know, being able to deal 3 damage to each non-white creature, I mean, even in commander, that's still tame. We have a lot better cards out there that are capable of, you know, dealing damage and getting rid of permanents. I mean, I'd rather play Steel Hellkite in any deck before considering this guy. So right off the bat, just significantly weaker. We have way better options. And then Lissia Sanguine Tribune, which is another new option that we got from Commander 2017. I chose not to put her on this list. She's just an honorable mention, mainly because she just seems to be a little bit like other commanders that we have, mainly Karlov, who has a lot better options, to be honest, while also trying to emulate Neheb the Eternal, Rakdos Lord of Riots, those commanders where she costs less if certain condition is met. While she is powerful in that aspect, I just don't really feel like she's powerful enough, or she does something unique. She just gets bigger when you gain life, and that's it. Commanders that get bigger don't really do it for me. If you don't believe me, look at Crush the Bloodbraid. I don't really like him. He just gets bigger. Thromach the Insatiable. Commanders that get really big are awesome, but you have to make them worthwhile by giving them other things like equipments, auras, any sort of other abilities that make them worthwhile. I think the whole lifelink thing is really cool, but eventually it just gets boring. So let's get on to the actual list here. Number 10 is Teriel, Reckoner of Souls. Not a huge fan of Teriel. Probably one of my least favorite angels, but she barely makes the top 10 list for one reason and one reason only. Graveyard Recursion is always good. And even though it's at random, you could pick one player who happens to have maybe only 1 creature in there, and you're guaranteed that creature. But if they have 2 or 3, you know, roll the dice. You know, sometimes it's fun to take a chance. She does have Vigilance, and the good thing about Vigilance on creatures with tap to activate abilities is that you can attack with them first and then tap to activate that ability. She came with the Heavenly Inferno deck, so she is an obvious include in a deck like Kali of the Vast, which I'll get to later. Number 9 is Mardu Ascendancy. Obviously a better option than Fervent Charge for the main fact that it helps token-based strategies and it gives you something long-term. It gives you permanent tokens, things that don't go away after combat. So you get the goblins tapped and attacking once you attack with each individual creature, so that's awesome. And in addition to that, at any time you could sacrifice it to have all your creatures get +0/+3, so it's a little bit of a defensive maneuver there that you can pull whenever your opponents try to kill off all your creatures, or let's say let's say all your creatures get blocked for some reason, or your opponents try to double block or anything like that, and you can just sacrifice it to give the creature tokens +0/+3 so that they survive a lot more combat situations. So it's unique. Nothing too special beyond that, though. This is the lower end of a top 10 list of 3 colors, so keep in mind it's going to be tougher to make this list more diverse. As we move forward, you're going to be seeing a lot more commander options, and it does get a bit more subjective when it comes to ranking commanders based on power and versatility. Number 8 is Ankle Shanker. Awesome creature. One of my favorite cards from Kanzatar-Kier that not a lot of people talk about. He is a 5 mana Mardu color 2/2 with haste that whenever you attack with him, all your creatures gain first strike and death touch until end of turn. So if he's your only creature, you swing with him, he's a 2/2 with first strike and death touch, along with the haste that he also gets. So if you're playing a huge token deck, or if you're playing just any aggressive Mardu deck at all, you could even throw this into a vampire deck just for fun. All your creatures are gaining first strike and death touch. That basically is going to force your opponents to throw some creatures in front of there and chump with creatures that they normally wouldn't just be chumping with just to survive, and they're just going to die anyway because first strike and death touch is pretty much going to destroy anything in its path unless it has indestructible or protection from the creature's color. So that's pretty good. Mathis Fiendseeker, number 7. He is one of the newer options from Commander 2017 in the vampire deck, and the only synergies he has with vampires is being a vampire. Other than that, he is very political. And one of the aspects about Mardu is that you have all this depth in commander options, and you have all these different directions you can go in. It's not all just about attacking and dealing as much damage with creatures as much as you can. Mathis takes it in a unique direction. I don't think he's too terribly powerful, but I like Mardu control. I think it has enough depth to where you can play curses, you can play board wipes, you can play targeted removal, you could play hand disruption if you wanted to. There's all these different directions that you can take with the deck, and I definitely think that Mathis has sort of an underrated potential that not enough people talk about. They're so absorbed with Edgar Markov and the aggressiveness with vampires, and I really do think it's a good deck. But with Mathis, you have just a unique perspective on the Mardu colors that you can play control, you can be political, you can make friends at the table, or you can just completely target one player and hate them out of the game, which is super awesome too. Number 6 is Crackling Doom, the only instant on this whole list, and it is a good one. Also very underrated, basically forcing each opponent to sacrifice a creature they control with the greatest power. It's going to pretty much ensure that you sort of level the playing field, and it deals 2 damage to each opponent, which isn't that big of a deal. But being able to, in a multiplayer game, have each player sacrifice their biggest creature is usually going to be a good thing. And for just 3 mana, that's pretty awesome. Number 5 is Zurgo Helm Smasher. He is easily the most aggressive, most simplified Voltron option in these colors, and it's perfect for Mardu because that's what you want to do in Mardu. You want to be aggressive, and you want to deal as much damage as possible. He has a huge benefit in the fact that he's indestructible on your turn only, so you can board wipe on your turn and then swing in for uncontested damage. He has 7 power. He gets bigger whenever he destroys creatures in combat. He's just going to get bigger and bigger. He's going to deal more damage, and he's a very good option. He's very cheap to build around. He doesn't demand a whole lot, and he's usually going to be one of the most intimidating board presences that really demands to be dealt with very early on, or else you risk losing the game suddenly to a board wipe and then a Zurgo swing. So he's very aggressive and a very effective Voltron commander. Number 4, I have Edgar Markov, Papa Markov here, and he is freaking awesome. Usually some sort of tribal build wouldn't be this high up on the list, but the fact that it works so brilliantly to where you have vampires you cast, you get 1/1 tokens. Well, that synergizes with token builds as well, so you can throw in something like an Anointed Procession and get a ton of tokens off of that, in addition to just play aggressive vampires where you have +1/+1 counter synergies that work really well with Edgar, as well as you can also play a Cathar's Crusade or anything like that, in addition to other tribal-based pump cards like Door of Destinies or Coat of Arms, things that are going to make your whole team bigger. He's definitely a badass. He definitely is what vampires needed to make them more aggressive, to make them more of a prominent force in the tribal game, because for the longest time, vampires were sort of on that fringe of, well, they're tribal, they're cool, but are they really effective? He's definitely an effective commander option, and he's super aggressive. Definitely love this guy, and we're getting even more support in Ixalan for vampires. We're getting white vampires, which is awesome. Number 3 is Queen Marchesa, very similar to Mathis Fiendseeker. When she was released in Conspiracy 2, automatically just fell in love with her. She alters the paradigm of what you usually think about color combinations, especially with Mardu. Super aggressive, super aggro, but she isn't any of that really. Even though she can be hasty, she can deal damage there, get you the monarchy. But the fact that she encourages you to play more of a tower defense type of play style, where it's protect the queen, you're whole goal here is to give yourself the most advantage possible while preventing your opponents from getting that advantage. The whole thing you want to do here is just play cards like Ghostly Prison, things like that that protect you from getting dealt combat damage, so you get to keep drawing more cards at your end step with the Monarchy. That way you enable yourself to play a more political game. You allow yourself to sort of play control as well. She works really well if you make a deck built around protecting your assets, protecting the Monarchy, and it's perfect for Commander. I mean, flavor-wise, makes a lot of sense. Number 2 is Kalia of the Vast. Now, she may not be one of the most powerful commanders on this list, but in terms of flavor, you can't really ask for much better than her. Just everything about her is just badass. She comes in the deck named Heavenly Inferno. She can summon angels, demons, and dragons. The flavor text is brilliant. Just read it there. I mean, come on. Whenever she attacks an opponent, you get to bring one of those creature types into play, tapped and attacking as well. It's so brilliant. There are so many interactions that are funny with her that skip attack triggers. Something like a Master of Cruelties can win games easily, as well as just interacting with big-ass creatures early on in the game, such as Avacyn, Angel of Hope, or Bogarden, Hellkite. Just big creatures that can help you win games quickly. She's incredible. She really helped the foundation of Commander. The whole product line from Wizard. She was definitely one of my favorites very early on when I started playing Commander, and so many people feared her way back in the day, and I still feel like there's this fear for her, that people just don't like that unknown, that you never know when you're gonna get the Heavenly Inferno, or you're just gonna get a creature swinging at your face. You don't know what's gonna come at you. And I think that's the best thing about her too, is that she's so random and you don't know what to expect with the Kalia player. But just flavor alone is enough of a reason to put her higher on this list. Now, this is more subjective, still keep that in mind. These are commander options. Some people like certain commander options more than others. So, in terms of flavor and in terms of what she means to Commander, that's why she's number 2 for me. Number 1 is Alesha, who smiles at death. She is an incredible Commander option that, again, kind of combines what you want out of Mardu. You want super aggressiveness. She is on the lower CMC cost for Mardu commanders, while also being a very effective one in combat. She does have first strike, so if you have a way to pump her up, she's going to get around a lot of things your opponents want to throw to block her. And she can bring back smaller creatures from your graveyard, and that's really what works well here. You want creatures with power 2 or less. And there's a lot of consistency with a deck like this where you can play a graveyard strategy combined with a super aggro deck. So it combines what you want with... You have an aggro strategy here. I mean, it's not too aggro. There are more aggressive strategies in Commander. But you have something that is more combat based combined with a very competent way of recovering. With Alesha, she can bring back creatures with power 2 or less, tapped and attacking. So, in a lot of ways, she resembles Kalia of the Vast, but for creatures that are smaller and from the graveyard. Personally, if I had to say which Mardu commander is my favorite option, I don't know if she would be my number 1, but the ability to recover in these colors is insanely underrated. And it's one of the biggest weaknesses with a commander like Kalia. It's a big weakness in Edgar Markov. Just through play testing, I've experienced so many situations where after a board wipe, these decks just have a terrible time of recovering. Alesha doesn't have those problems, because you play Alesha, you swing with her, you get back your creatures from your graveyard, like you get back your Karmic Guides and you get back other creatures. You can get back your Revularks and just continue to go on strong. She can also be built on a budget. She doesn't demand a lot of money to build around. You have other commanders on this list. You have Kalia, who's a bit more expensive. She's cool, she's flavorful, but she does demand a bit more of a budget to build around. Whereas I do believe Alesha can be built with a lot more cheaper cards. So you have that benefit as well. But super effective in combat and super effective being able to recover, making her one of the most difficult commanders to deal with. Just super fun, super effective. So anyway guys, that's my top 10 list on the best Mardu colored cards in the Commander format. Let me know your opinions. Let me know what you think about this list. Let me know what your 10 would be. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off.